Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 188. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews down in the comments section. Let me know, who is your favorite wide receiver to target this year? It could be the first overall pick, or it could be somebody that you like in the 8th round. Let me know down in the comments. That's where we're going to be diving into this week. We're going to go into the 2025 fantasy football wide receiver tiers and rankings. But first, a little housekeeping. Head over to themadlabmma.com at the time of watching this or listening to this. It is right before UFC 319. Huge card. Mad Lab has everything on lock from betting to DFS. I think he's up over 4 units in each of the last 2 weeks. So heading into a pay-per-view, he's on fire. So head over there. You get NFL free with your MMA package. You will get access to all of our bets, as well as DFS breakdowns, the roster bully every weekend. Sunday morning, I will do the contrarian corner, where I'm basically breaking down what the chalk is, ways to get different, and ways to attack your GPP lineups. But as I said, we're diving into wide receivers. We did quarterbacks and tight ends last week. And for the first time in a long time, we have the entire gang back together. And joining me, we have Mike Carpanini. Mike, how we doing?
Boys, how are you now?
And Dave Utnick.
Gentlemen, good to be back.
And last but certainly not least, James Fitzpatrick. Fitz, how we doing?
That's right. What's good?
So yeah, it's been, probably maybe this time last year since the last time all 4 of us were on. So pretty excited. We're going to dive into these wide receivers here. And this is usually one of the longer shows of the year because there are so many wide receivers. So we might as well dive right into it. But might as well start with tier 1 here. So tier 1, I have 3 guys, and it's Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. I do think that Chase deserves to be the number 1 overall pick. He obviously was incredible last year. The only issue is, it's very rare we see guys go back-to-back years being number 1 overall, but career highs last year, 175 targets, 127 receptions, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. All of those led the league. So he is an absolute monster. You would think that offense is still going to be clicking on all cylinders. I have CeeDee Lamb up here. Obviously, last year was a disappointment. Only 15 games. Only 8 of those were with Dak. He was dealing with shoulder injury. He was dealing with a bunch of stuff and no Dak for basically half the season. Still had 100 yards, 1,100 yards, 100 receptions, and 6 touchdowns. Previously went for 135, 1,712. So he's had at least 150 targets in 3 straight years. And then Justin Jefferson should still be the alpha there. Probably if you take everybody off of a team and just say who's the best wide receiver, it's probably Justin Jefferson. So I think he does belong in this tier. I do think that the other 2 just potentially have a little bit higher upside because of the offenses they are on. But Dave, would you disagree with anything in this tier?
No, not at all. Each of the guys have their own positives and negatives, if you will. But I think these 3 are completely above the rest here. And, wouldn't have any issue if you ranked them in any different order. But I actually have the same order you do here.
Fair enough. Fitz, what about you?
Yeah, I think, this tier will be pretty quick. There's no arguments from me. I think this is clearly the top 3 guys. You split in hairs, whatever order you want to put them in. I agree Chase is 1. And, maybe I have, Jefferson 2 and CeeDee Lamb 3. But no argument. These are clearly the top 3 receivers this year.
And Mike, what about you?
Yeah, all the way around, not arguing. I think, like Dave, I think this is the right order. Should probably all be gone by, pick 5 at worst.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're not going running back, it's probably one of these 3. So we're all in agreement there. Obviously that was pretty boring. Not a lot of animosity there. So we might as well bring some animosity into the podcast. And we have a returning segment. It is going to be making waves with Wade Williams. Obviously he came last year, has some hot takes, and we're going to let him tell us what wide receivers he's on and which one he doesn't like so much. So Wave, thanks for joining. We're just going to let you cook here. So, you made some proclamations last year. Some of them were all right. Some of them not so great. But why don't you let us know what you like for
All right,
2020?
first guy up is Ted McMillan, 6'4", 220, first round pick, 8th overall. He's got 4.5 speed. I know people were concerned about that, but that's fast enough for me. He's going to be a target hog on day one. Big time college numbers he put up. He displayed big time yak ability in college. I feel he has no target competition at all, and his quarterback showed big improvement in the second half. I think he has a good chance at about 1,010 TDs, and with that 6'4" frame, I think he's a big time red zone threat.
Yeah, I actually like that one quite a bit. I'm growing on him a little bit here. I think Bryce Young could be good. I think the 10 touchdowns is maybe a bit of a stretch with this offense, but definitely like him, and I think he's trending in the right direction. What else you got?
All right, second guy is Tyreek Hill. I know he had a bad season last year. He started off by getting arrested and at his home stadium, slammed in the pavement. But that incident, he also hurt his wrist, and I think it impacted him for the whole season. His quarterback Tua missed a couple of games, leading. He had a bunch of scrubs thrown in the football last year. I can't even remember all of them. It was Skylar Thompson and a bunch of other scrubs. But I think he's healthy now. He mended the fences with his coach and his QB because there was some drama there, and I think he's ready to ball. I know he's 31, but he's I don't think he lost his speed at all. I saw over the summer he raced somebody, hit 10.15 in the 100-meter. I'm betting the Cheetah smokes corners this year, and at a late second or third round pick, he's not too far removed from an 1,800-yard season. So I'm definitely buying Tyreek Hill this year.
All right. What else you got?
Last one's a deep sleeper. I think I saw he's 200 on ESPN. It's my guy Dante Thornton. This guy has been he's been starting since OTAs. Like he had a new coach at Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. He's been starting since OTAs. It means mini camps. He's been starting in a training camp. Usually you don't see that with the rookie. So caught my attention. I don't really care about college production. Most of these coaches are donks. At 6'5", 205, and this guy runs a 4.3 40 with Big Gino throwing on the ball. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I'm not worried about Jacoby Myers, and I think this guy could be the steal of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, he's going late enough. You could definitely take him later in drafts, and there is probably some upside there. Should be a deep threat. Gino likes to throw the ball deep. Could be a red zone threat, and like you said, Myers and him have two completely different profiles and roles, so I could see it. So who are we not on this year?
Not on. This guy might surprise you. I don't like Zay Flowers. He's small. He's got a lot of target competition. He's got Lamar in there scoring TDs. He's got Big Dog in there scoring TDs. He's got two different tight ends that have talent to score TDs. Rashad Bateman had a big bounce back year. They got Hopkins. That's just way too many mouths to feed for a guy who hasn't shown the ability to score a lot of touchdowns. So where he goes, I do not like Zay Flowers at all.
All right, Wave. I mean, that was pretty interesting there. I think there's some guys I agree with, maybe some guys I'm not so much into, but we'll have you back next week for the running backs. So, Fitz, go ahead. Why don't you let us know your thoughts?
Yeah, well, what I got out of that is Zay Flowers is going to have a huge year because, Abe's just a huge donkey, and whatever he says, the opposite usually happens. He's just the typical Al Davis of fantasy football. The guys are big and fast. He likes them, so no surprise. The guys that he liked, going on a limb there, picking the top 5 or top 10 NFL draft pick in Ted McMillan. I think, like you said, a little stretch. Everyone's 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown guy. I don't see that. Tyreek Hill, he's always been on Tyreek Hill because he's fast. But it's very interesting that Wave's really keyed in on the summer activities. Remember last year he knew about Christian Watson spending million on his hamstring, and now he's watching Tyreek Hill on races and clocking him on his speed. And then, DeAndre Thornton, very interesting. I don't know how you start from OTAs, but yeah, he's been starting from OTAs, but that's a typical Wave guy, just tall and fast. He said he doesn't care about college production, but we all know that's important. The guy ran like 2 routes in college. He ran, go routes and curl routes. He had 65 catches across 4 years at college. So Wave thinking he's just going to step in as the number one. And I mean, he's the number one by default because of his size. He's a prototypical X, and the Raiders don't have that type of player. But I think pro corners are going to eat Thornton up. The guy's got a lot of development. He might be good one day, but he's got a lot to do to develop. So I just think there's typical Wave picks, and I love the graphic. That was good too.
Mike, what about you?
He didn't care about college numbers on Thornton, but he memorized McMillan's college numbers. So, I mean, Wave likes his guys, and he's going to use any justification he can for them, even if they're completely contradictory to what his usual nonsense is. I'm upset with the McMillan pick because he was my first round rookie draft in our dynasty league. Not a great sign there. We all saw Thornton coming. He's been talking about it for a while, so we knew that one was coming. And he's been a Tyreek guy forever. So honestly, it was very, very expected from what Wave said. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it was good or bad because we all know. He's going to hit some, he's going to miss some, but the misses will be forgotten by tomorrow. But yeah, most of that was expected. I didn't know that Zay Flowers was competing for targets with Lamar and Henry. Like, that's interesting. Like, Henry should get a couple. I didn't think Lamar was going to throw to himself that much to take targets away from Flowers. So I guess we'll see.
Dave, what about you?
Well, the most unsurprising thing was big and fast equals good and small equals bad. So that we could have told you before he even came on. The one thing, my biggest surprise, though, was fast enough as in explaining what Tet McMillan is. I mean, I think Tet's going to be really good. I really have no issue with him being a sleeper. I don't think he's a sleeper with where he's going in drafts, but I think he's got a lot of potential. But that's the first time I've heard from Wave that fast enough is okay in this instance. But he's got, Mike Evans type build, going to be a red zone threat. I think the Panthers take a big step forward. So I don't hate that there. And the Thornton, you guys, beat to death already. But Bowers and Myers are your 1 and 2 there. I don't really see much room for a team that's going to run the ball in a Pete Carroll offense significantly. I don't think you can feed a third mouth over there. So he might be on the field, running wind sprints from time to time. But other than that, I don't see Thornton having much of a role this year at all.
Yeah, I'd say he's going to be a cheap DFS play. If you like kind of games where maybe the Raiders are going to have to throw a little bit playing from behind, you go with the Geno stack with Bowers, and you can have Thornton as a cheap bringback and hope he catches a long one or a touchdown.
Yeah, and since we're also talking season long here, Thornton is free. You don't need to draft him. In fact, you could probably pick him up off the waiver wire in week like 4 or 5. So if you want to keep that in the back of your mind, fine. But I don't see Thornton as a guy that's even getting drafted in your home leagues.
I agree with that. The only thing is we still have some preseason games here, and just the community overreacts to the preseason so much. So I could see him catching like a long touchdown, and then all of a sudden everybody starts hyping him up for no reason. And Wave is like, see, I told you. Because, people get a little too excited about preseason. But we'll see. But that was making waves. He'll be back next week to break down the running backs. But we might as well continue on here with our tiers. We have Tier 2. Now, this one I have 3 guys here as well. And I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, and Nico Collins, all for different reasons. Amon-Ra, I don't know that he necessarily has the ceiling that those top 3 guys have in Tier 1. So that's why I kind of have him here. But I think he's probably the safest on the board. 3 straight years of 100-plus receptions. Only him and CeeDee Lamb have done that. 115 last year, 119 in 2023, 27% target share last year. 2 straight years with double-digit touchdowns. He's being used in the red zone, had 12 last year. second most red zone targets, third most inside the 10-yard line. So, you think of him as a slot PPR guy, but he's actually been getting the touchdowns to go with it. So I love Amon-Ra. And I mean, you can actually get him towards the end of the first round. I see some of these other wide receivers going before him, and I get there's some concerns about some regression with this Lions offense, but I still think, regardless, he is going to be the alpha there. Malik Neighbors concerns me a little bit, just the ongoing toe issue since basically college, dealing with a shoulder, but he is an absolute freak of nature, and he is going to be the alpha for this team. He's I get the quarterback concerns, but let's be serious. Is it anything worse than what he dealt with last year? He had 170 targets last year. That was second in the league. 109 receptions, fifth in the league. 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns as a rookie. And that was only in 15 games. So he's going to be targeted early and often. 35% target share last year. 33% targets per route run. So literally every route he ran, he was thrown it once out of every 3 routes. Nico Collins. I think that Stroud takes a step back in the right direction. I think that Bobby Slowick was terrible for that offense last year, ran the ball way too much. 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns for Nico last year. I think he is the alpha with some young guys coming in here. I don't think Kirk is too much of a threat to take too many targets away from him. 30% target per route run, so that's another elite number there. He was 4th in the league with 3.07 yards per route run. I mean, anytime you are up over 3 yards, that is absolutely elite. To put that in perspective, Tyreek Hill was basically going as the wide receiver 1 last year when he had 1,800 yards the previous season. He was up over 3 yards. So that is an elite number when you get up over that. I just think that he is a big play waiting to happen. Should be the alpha. The only concern is he hasn't really been able to finish a full season, only 12 games last year. So that is a bit of a concern, especially if you're spending a first-round pick on him. But, Mike, what do you think here? Do you think there's anything I should change? Anybody I should add up here? Or?
I feel like Amon-Ra is kind of by himself. I could almost argue that it should be Chase and Lamb alone at 1, and then Jefferson and Amon-Ra should be your second tier, and then these other guys kind of drop down to 3 by default. I just think having Amon-Ra down here just feels wrong. I just think he's and admittedly, he's a better real football player than he is a fantasy football player, even though he's a phenomenal fantasy football player. Like, he's even better as, like, actually on-field production. And then I think the other two are right where they should be. I'm surprised you have a couple of dudes in 3 that are not up here. I'm not necessarily saying I disagree with them being in 3, but I'm surprised you guys, and you, Derek, specifically, don't have them in up here. But I think this tier is mostly right, especially if you either kind of outlier Amon-Ra or if you kind of modified that top one to come Jefferson Amon-Ra.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you could make a micro tier of Jefferson and Amon-Ra. I think Jefferson has potentially wide receiver 1 upside. I don't know if Amon-Ra does. I definitely could see him finishing top 3, but I don't know if he has that number 1 overall upside. That's kind of the reason why I have those 3 in the top tier. And then my reason for not really bringing some of the other guys up into this tier is, we'll get to it, there's just a little bit more concerns for me, whereas I think that these guys have some of the safest workloads while still having upside. So that was just part of the reason why I kind of left some of those other guys out. But Dave, what are you thinking here?
I mean, I'm good with the tier that you have. All these guys have that elite upside. I think Neighbors is your most likely to finish or start next year in tier 1 of the group. I mean, I think we're going to get into it in a minute, but I think the only guys that I would have up here, I would put Brian Thomas in the mix here. I think he had a strong enough rookie season, assuming a second-year leap, that you would put him, right in that same class as Neighbors. So I think he's the only one that's missing. And Puka would probably be the top of this class for me if we knew what was going on with the quarterback. But can't disagree with having these 3 guys here. I wouldn't go Mike's route. I think they all belong in a group together, and you could add in those other 2 if you wanted to, or, they become the top of the next tier.
Yeah, and we'll get to those other guys you just brought up. I do think that there's just enough warts where they are slightly behind these guys. I mean, if they finished ahead of these three, would I be surprised? Not necessarily. Maybe Amon Ra, but I do think that there's a little bit more warts with their potential workloads there. So, Fitz, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with the first two. I mean, Amon Ra and Neighbors, they're both beast target monsters. I'm good there. Nico's, he's solid. He's a wide receiver one there. He's definitely belongs. But I just don't feel comfortable taking him in the first round. Like you said, he's hasn't stayed healthy for a full season, and just I would rather have Drake London in that spot, honestly, than Nico Collins. I think he's a more talented player, and like I said, he's the number one there. I like his. I know Nico has Stroud, but I was a big fan of Penix coming out of college. I think he can really sling it. He's had his year to sit. He's got a big time arm. I think he can really unleash a lot of London's potential. So I would just swap Nico Collins and London and move on with this tier.
That's fair. I guess that's a perfect segue to go to the next tier because I do have London there. Obviously, Dave, you brought up Puka and Brian Thomas. I put AJ Brown in this tier as well. I just think that he belongs there. Puka is tough though. I think that, like I said, I think he could absolutely finish up there, but hasn't really had touchdowns. Only 9 touchdowns over his first 2 seasons, so that's a little bit of a concern there. Last year, 79 receptions, 990 yards. I mean, that's not great, but he only played 11 games. So that's another concern, too, is the injury concerns there. He's always had injury problems throughout college and his early NFL career. But, we were talking about 3.07 yards per route run is elite for Nico Collins. Well, Puka led the league with 3.61. So he ran away with that one there. I mean, huge play upside. He had a 39% target per route run. So when he was on the field, he was being used. Obviously, had the huge rookie year, 1,400 yards, 105 receptions. The only issue here for me, why I have him here and I'm not willing to move him up, and honestly, I don't think I'm going to draft him in any leagues other than the best ball, is the Stafford injury. It scares the shit out of me. I mean, if he is not there, yeah, they have Jimmy G, but I think his upside is tremendously capped. And then you have Devontae Adams too. And Devontae Adams is not Cooper Kupp. I think Devontae Adams, even at his age, could still have a pretty healthy target share, could be the red zone threat. I mean, we've seen Matthew Stafford succeed tremendously with wide receivers of Devontae Adams' ilk. And I think that's one of my concerns there. I have A.J. Brown here. Another injury concern, dealing with a hamstring right now. I think they're just being cautious with him, but only 13 games last year because of injuries, but still had 67 receptions, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 16.1 yards per reception. He was third in the league with 3.45 yards per route run. So again, elite numbers there. People forget that the previous season, played the full season, had back-to-back 1,400-yard seasons the previous 2. So he still has tremendous upside. If they aren't playing from ahead and have to throw the ball a little more, I love him here. Fitz, you brought up Drake London. I do like him. First year of 100 receptions and 1,000-plus receiving yards. 100 receptions last year, 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns. Had a 29% target share. So absolutely elite target share there. He's going to get the ball thrown to him. His final 3 games when Penix started, 8 targets, 13 targets, 18 targets. I mean, Penix was looking his way often, and I don't see that changing, so I do love him there. I just worry a little bit about the offense, and maybe Penix not. I got to see him take a step forward before I put Drake London up there in the upper echelon. And then Brian Thomas Jr. obviously was an incredible season last year. 87 receptions, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. But people forget that the bulk of that production came with Mac Jones. That was week 14, 18. He had double-digit targets in each one of those games. 45% of his targets on the year and 40% of his yards were with Mac Jones. So how's it going to work out with Trevor Lawrence? The fact that they added Hunter, how much is he going to play? Are they going to scheme him in? Is So there's just a couple questions for me that keep me away from putting Brian Thomas up there with those other guys. But I think you can make a case that any one of these guys definitely could finish up there above those guys in the other tier. But just a couple questions keep me from putting them up there. But Fitz, we'll go right back to you on this one. What's your thought on this tier? I know you already touched on London, but
Yep, no, I agree with you guys on Puka. It's amazing. Like if Stafford was healthy and there was no Devontae Adams, he's in tier 2, maybe even tier 1. But I agree. Like I said, without Stafford, he's not anywhere near this tier. And I agree with the Devontae Adams take. Even if Stafford is healthy, he loves to glue onto one receiver. He makes his top receiver just inflate his numbers. And Devontae Adams, yeah, he's older, but he never really relied on speed and athleticism. He was really just a technician, with his routes and beating coverage and getting open. So, if Stafford's healthy, maybe, Devontae Adams really takes a lot of those targets away, and is the guy there. So I would take Puka out of this tier personally. I like AJ Brown. I like Brian Thomas. I might, move, guy you have down. I don't make another guy that just older. We're pushing him down, but Mike Evans is just super consistent. 1,000 yards seems like 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Every year. Baker's my guy, really. Making that offense go. So I like him, and then yeah, you got a lot of the other guys we're going to say you got in your next tier. We'll talk about, but as far as this tier, I would take Puka out, and the other guys I agree with.
yeah, and when we get to the next tier, I mean, I said the reason why I don't have these guys in this tier up a tier is because they have a little bit more questions. They certainly have the upside that those guys in front of them do. The reason why I have the guys in the next tier and not this one is just I think they have some questions, and I don't know that their upside is as high as these guys are, because I do think that these guys could absolutely come away and end up being a top 5 wide receiver this year, where some of the guys, as we get to the next one, not so much. Dave, what are you thinking here?
I mean, you read it out before. Puka had 79 catches and almost 1,000 yards in 11 games. I think even with the Stafford injury, he's still going to get you value as he falls down the draft board. I think Devontae Adams probably gets affected more, the longer Jimmy G is out there than Puka does, because they got to move the ball somehow, and he's going to get a ton of targets. So I'm good with him in this tier.
My only issue with that is Puka's not falling at all. He's still going like 6 to 10 in a lot of drafts. So I don't think I'm willing to take the risk that high. That's the only reason why I kind of have him here. That concerns me a little bit.
I mean, like you said, there's still a lot of preseason and a lot of the, angst of Matthew Stafford, especially the longer that we don't see him. I mean, he's old enough where he could just show up for week 1 and be fine.
Oh, sure.
And it's been,
but he's also old. He's also old enough where he could show up for week 1 and never play again.
100%. Both of those are in the realm of expectations here. But
and that's what I mean. When that's your range of outcomes, taking a guy at 6 overall is a little bit concerning. Now, if he was going at 16, probably be a different conversation for me.
I've seen him falling into the middle of the second round in best ball drafts recently. I feel like his stock is going to fall, and you might actually be getting a lot of good value if you're able to buy the dip there. But the rest of the tier, I'm completely okay with. The only one I might bump out of there is AJ Brown, strictly based on fantasy football, not real life football. The Eagles' offense is still a run-first offense. You do have Devonta Smith there. Jalen Hurts just doesn't throw the ball a ton. Yeah, I mean, Brown is going to put up numbers when he can, but I think your upside is capped by the lack of passing in that offense. Even if they have to throw a little bit more this year, they're not going to throw remarkably more.
Now, I think part of the reason why they didn't throw as much last year is because he was hurt. Brown was hurt for a chunk of the year. Devontae Smith was hurt for a chunk of the year. Goddard was hurt at the end of the year. So I think that kind of forced them to run the ball a little bit more. Are they going to be a rush-first offense? Yes, absolutely. That is the makeup of this team. But I think they were forced to – I think they were bottom 3 in pass attempts last year. Even if that upticks a little bit, even if you throw a little bit more, with the upside that Brown has, you add some extra targets, extra receptions, him getting 16, 17 yards per reception, even with a couple extra receptions, I mean, that significantly increases the amount of fantasy points you're getting for him. So
he's also the oldest guy in this group, and the assumption is that the others are going to make a leap forward, where you pretty much know what you got with AJ Brown. He still belongs in the upper tier, but I think he's at the bottom or in the next one here.
that's fair. Mike, what about you?
It's kind of funny. We started pre-show saying we're just not going to argue much, but as we're scrolling through these, I think I am going to argue. I think now I'm more solidified in my two up top. So you've got Chase Lamb and then a separate one for Jefferson St. Brown. And then I think from the rest of that 2 tier down to here is the same tier. I said a couple of guys on when we were talking about tier 2, but you guys convinced me on all 4 of them. I think all 4 of them should be up with Collins and Neighbors. I don't see these 4 having warts that are bigger than, Neighbors, honestly, if he wasn't coming into the season kind of hampered, I think that's a different story, but he is. We live in real time. And then, like you said, with Collins, he hasn't put together a full season in a while. So I don't see those warts as smaller than, Nakua with, he, like you said, ton of targets, like AJ Brown. We're knocking him because he's old. We're knocking him because he was hurt last year. Like, okay, but he's still, go back 2 years and he was, top 5, top 3. I don't remember exactly what he was. And then London and Thomas are on the ascension. I have no reason to believe they can't keep that going. So I think all 6 of these guys belong together.
Fair. I think you can make a case for it. I think those guys towards the top, I like their workload a little bit more, but yeah, the injury concerns are definitely warts that you can't overlook there. So tier 4, this is a big one for me here. A lot of guys here. I'm not going to go through in depth too much on some of them. Let you guys react first and then kind of give my thoughts. But I have T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Najigba, Marvin Harrison, Tyreek Hill, Lad McConkey, DK Metcalf, and Mike Evans for tier 4. Now, I like these guys quite a bit. I mean, if I went stud wide receiver first and these were my wide receiver 2s, I would be more than happy. But Dave, what are you thinking in this tier here?
Thinking it's a good idea if you leave the graphic up the entire time so I can talk through them. The ones that I'm going to get rid of from this tier are Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf, and probably Marvin Harrison. Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf have the same problem. They're in run-first offenses where I don't think, especially Garrett Wilson, is just going to get enough opportunities to support his draft capital here. The Jets are going to run the hell out of the ball with all of their running backs, with Justin Fields. Yeah, Garrett Wilson might get a huge target share, but, I mean, if Fields throws, 15 times a game, I feel like that's going to be a lot. So I don't think you got a ton for Garrett Wilson there. I don't love the fit with DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh, at least compared to the other players in this tier. Arthur Smith run first offense is the same reason, really. And I don't know if I trust Marvin Harrison with the guys like T. Higgins, Lad McConkey, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Mike Evans that have kind of proven it here. I think they kind of stand alone from the other guys.
That's fair. Garrett Wilson, for me, yes, they're going to be a run-first offense, but it's going to be run first, throw to Garrett Wilson second. There literally is nobody else there. He's going to get targets. Last year, had 101 receptions, 1,100 yards. Obviously, that was with Aaron Rodgers. They threw way more than they should have, but once Adams came to town, he basically took a back seat and still had a 30% target share. There's just nobody else to rely on here. I think he is talented enough, and in this spot, you're getting these guys around the 3rd round. So I'm fine with this tier 3rd round. I mean, you're most likely, like I said, if I got a stud wide receiver and a stud running back, and then I'm getting one of these guys as my wide receiver too, I'm more than happy with it. I do have questions about JSN, just obviously incredibly talented, but is he going to play in the slot now that they have Cooper Kupp here? How many targets is Cooper Kupp going to get? The fact that they thought that they should go out and get him, obviously they think that he's worth something. And then Darnold on this offense, it's also a Kubiak offense. They're going to be run first. So that's concerning. But the big thing is I just made a case for Garrett Wilson. 212 vacated targets. That's the third most in the league here for Seattle. So there's a lot to go around here. So you can make a case for him. Marvin Harrison, disappointed last year. Obviously was not great. 62 for 885 yards. Not a great season, but he did have 8 touchdowns. So he's used quite a bit in the red zone. I think the biggest problem is the way they use him. They're just having him run down the field and throwing deep routes. They need to scheme him better. They need to get the ball in his hands earlier. I do think that he's lower on this tier, but deserves to be in it. And then you touched on Metcalf. I do have big concerns. That's why I have him at the end of this tier. It's just same as Garrett Wilson. Yes, run first offense, but with Aaron Rodgers there, he's going to check out of half of those runs anyway. And if him and Metcalf get on the same page, it is to the moon for Metcalf, because I do think that he has upside. Now, obviously in his career, he's never really lived up to that upside. He's had some good seasons, but when he was coming out, it was like, wow, this guy is a freak of nature. He's going to be the number one wide receiver every single year. And he really hasn't lived up to that. I don't expect that anymore from him. But I do think that if he can get on the same page as Aaron Rodgers, there is some upside there. Fitz, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I really don't disagree with any of this tier. I'll just pick out a couple guys that I like more than the others. And fair enough. It's actually DK Metcalf. I know, Dave's down on him, but I agree. I think, with Aaron Rodgers, that's the best quarterback he's ever played with. I've always been a DK Metcalf fan. I know, like I said, quarterback play, and, he's had some other good receivers to fight for targets with in Seattle. He doesn't have that here in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's, they're going to want to run the ball, but like you said, Aaron Rodgers, you don't get Aaron Rodgers to run the ball. They're going to throw the ball more often than they usually do. And if DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers get on the same page, it's back shoulders all day and it's uncoverable. It's like, I think DK Metcalf can absolutely have the best year of his career. And it might be, looking back next year, seeing it was a mistake. Him in this tier should have been, a tier or, a tier or two up. The other one I mentioned was Mike Evans. And then I lost the tiers here. Sorry.
I can bring it back up.
No, I got it here. And then, Marvin Harrison. I suspect him to take a big step up this year. I really loved him coming out of college. I mean, the guy, great route runner, going to get open. I think, that offense as a whole could take a step forward. And as long as, him and Kyler get on the same page, and like you said, they use him more creatively and really scheme more for him, I think he can have a big bounce back year. And you mentioned JSN, another one I really liked coming out, was kind of buried there behind Metcalf and Lockett. That's all out of the way now. So he's the go-to guy there, really developing into a really good receiver. And I think he can take another big step forward this year.
Yeah, I'd be interested in JSN, similar to the case I made with Puka. It's just where he's going is a little bit too high for me this year. And just with the questions of the change in the offensive philosophy, the addition of Kupp and Darnold throwing to him, if I could get him in the third round, I'd be happy to do it. But he's kind of going towards the end of the second right now, and that's just a little too rich for me. Mike, what do you think about this tier here?
I actually think, consensus, I think the tier is accurate. I think we could argue where they belong in the tier more than the tier itself. And it's honestly just going to come down to personal preference. I'm going to have Garrett Wilson way too high. I said when we paused, I didn't want to talk about him, and here I am. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about him. I think we touched on it last week. The Jets are going to be a triple option offense, and their only target beyond that is Garrett Wilson. So he's, some donk said a couple of years ago that he's got that Jefferson Chase talent. I still believe that. We'll see where that lands. And then we're just arguing order here. I'm not a Kyler guy. I never have been, never will be. So I'm going to put Harrison down, even though I do think he hasn't forgotten how to play football. One of those college stats that Wade would probably care about if he was a Harrison guy, but even though he doesn't care about other college stats. Metcalf is an enigma. Not wrong. He's the best. He's the best physical specimen that Rodgers has ever played with. Rodgers is the best quarterback that he's ever played with. I'm not saying he's a better receiver than Devontae Adams, but he's the physical specimen. So that could go both ways. Rodgers could just go beat Rodgers, and then it's all for shit anyway. Mike Evans gets disrespected every single year. Every single year, he's at the bottom of a tier that he honestly shouldn't be. There's potentially should be a tier ahead of where we put them. The dude is just the most consistently good receiver of the past decade. And we just never give him the credit that he's due. Darnold is going to just throw for a bazillion yards, so I'm going to be all over Kupp and Njigba. Darnold's going to lead that team, better than most people give him credit for. We're arguing order here, not necessarily the tier itself.
Fair enough. Two guys that we didn't really spend a lot of time in this tier. Tyreek Hill, obviously, Wave thinks he's going to have a huge season. I'm concerned about this Dolphins offense and just team in general. I do think that their defense is going to suck. So maybe that makes them throw the ball a little bit more. If he is healthy, he still has that speed and upside. So I think for that alone, he belongs in this tier. But I think the days of Tyreek Hill being that wide receiver one, top elite wide receiver might be in the past. And the other concern for me is this offensive line is putrid. So Tua might die. I mean, say that jokingly. I mean, knock on wood, that offensive line is brutal, and that guy could get hit many, many times. So don't love that. Ladd McConkey, I think, is going to be a very good wide receiver in this league. I have a little concern this year about him finishing where he did last year, 82 receptions, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. I think we talk about run first offenses. That's a lot of guys in this tier. That's what it's going to be. I mean, the Chargers, signed Najee. Obviously, he blew his eye out, but prior to that, they signed him. They drafted Hampton, first round capital on a running back and paying a running back to come in. They obviously want to run the ball. I think last year their running game kind of fell off a cliff, so they were forced to throw the ball a little bit more. I could see them taking a little bit step back. I still think McConkey is incredibly talented. Keenan Allen at this point in his career is not who he used to be, but he's still going to take targets away from Ladd. And last year, Ladd only had 112 targets as it was. So that's a bit of a concern. That's actually less than Keenan even had on the Bears last year. So if he could move up to like the 130, 140 yard or target mark, I'd be a little bit more in on him there. But if we move to the next tier, got a bunch of guys in this one too. I think Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Smith, Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore, and Tet McMillan here. We talked about it with Puka. Devontae could be incredible here if Stafford is healthy all year. I could see him putting up huge numbers here, so I do like him quite a bit. Then Terry McLaurin, obviously holding out, not the best. Maybe some regressions in the touchdown department, but playing with what should be a great quarterback. And I do think that there's some upside there. I don't think he's going to have the season he did last year, but I do like him quite a bit. Devontae Smith, as I said, I think he's a great number 2 receiver in this league. You're going to get solid weeks from him. He's not going to give you 50-point games, but he is pretty consistent, and he can throw in the 25 to 30-point games here and there, so I like him quite a bit. Cortland Sutton as well, I do think that he's underrated. 81 receptions, 1,000 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, 25% target share. I don't think that target share is going anywhere. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1. I could see Bo Nix taking a step forward. I think DJ Moore deserves to be here just on talent alone. A lot of mouths to feed there, though. And then Tet McMillan, obviously Wave thinks he's going to be pretty good. I actually am growing on him quite a bit, too. I think Bryce Young is going to target him. He is definitely going to be the wide receiver 1. There's a lot of guys in that wide receiver room, but I think he's going to be the best of them by far. Mike, what are you thinking in this range here?
I thought you guys told me Devontae Adams was on the Rams.
He is.
Oh yeah, I have the Raiders logo there. That's good.
Okay.
Good for me. Good for me. How did that happen? He wasn't even there for Jesus. See, this is what happens when you make
living in it.
This is what happens when you make graphics at 11:30 and wake up at 5 a.m. It's laying in bed. Disregard.
What round is this tier going in?
It's basically 5 to 7, somewhere around there. I've seen a lot of them go.
All right. It just feels to me like this entire tier. It's another one where I don't think you're wrong on much, if anything, here. McLaurin might be the only standout there. Like, if we expect Jaden Daniels to take a step up, I would think McLaurin kind of has to come up with him. But I feel much better about this tier in 7 than I do 5. Like, it just feels kind of gross. Like, I feel like you're going to have better running back options at around this time in the draft. This might be where we start seeing the run on quarterbacks, honestly. Didn't think it would come this soon, but so I think the tier is right. I just think it's going to go higher than I want to be on it. But then again, it could also start a run of wide receivers, where then we're looking down tier 6, tier 7 as our wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. So you might not have any choice. So another one where it's going to be your order. Once Davante Adams gets on the right team, then I think that's a very viable in that range. Like I said, I think McLaurin just feels low. I don't know if he actually is. Maybe he just doesn't put up numbers like I think he should. You guys are the numbers people. But DJ Moore on the name, I like that call. McMillan just, got to have hope, especially because I personally drafted him. But I just feel, you said too rich for your blood on a couple of the other tiers. This might be the tier where it's too rich for my blood.
Yeah. So to answer your ADP question, Cortland Sutton average 5'11", so towards the end of the 5th round. Devontae Smith 5'12". So they're going basically 5, 6, somewhere around there. Dave, what do you think about this tier?
I mean, I don't like this tier. I don't want to live in this tier. I don't like this tier. I don't see much difference and would actually put a few of these guys behind some of the players you got in your next tier here, but these are not names I want to reach for. Terry McLaurin had 13 touchdowns last year. That seems like a lot for him to repeat, and I think that's where a lot of his fantasy points came from, those touchdowns. Also, he's holding out. He's got the contract dispute. There's a whole bunch of things I don't like about that situation. Whether Davante Adams is on the Raiders or the Rams here, there's still some question marks about his age, who's going to play quarterback. I like Devonta Smith, especially with the contingency upside he has if A.J. Brown does go down. But I don't think these guys stand above the next big group of players we have here at all. Any of them.
That's fair. I think the unknown of McMillan and potentially that offense moving forward makes sense. I like Cortland Sutton quite a bit. I mean, we've seen him be productive with Russell Wilson. I do think that he's a big play guy. I do think that he could be a red zone threat. I trust Sean Payton. So I just have these guys slightly above the rest of the guys there. Fitz, what are you thinking?
I agree with you. I like. I think all these guys belong where they should be, except for DJ Moore. I forgot to mention. I really, really love DJ Moore, and I think he should be a tier above. I just think that, there is a lot of mouths to feed there, but I just like to switch the offensive coordinator, and I think they're going to manufacture a lot of touches. Get him. I heard get some snaps at running back. So I really like DJ Moore. And, just for the sake of fade the wave, I'm going to bring Safe Flowers up into this tier and, to transition. And Calvin Ridley, I think Cam Ward is going to lock on him, and he's going to be a target monster there. So that's, that's what I like out of this tier. I agree with you on Sutton. I think, as Knicks continues to progress, that, Cortland Sutton's going to get better.
Fair enough.
Fight them off, Fitz.
I forgot you guys can see me.
Oh, it's good stuff. But yeah, DJ Moore scares me for a couple reasons. They're just drafting Loveland, Roma Dunze. I think Tootin is pretty good, or not Tootin. Nah, I can't even think now.
DeAndre Swift.
Nope, the other
Come on,
wide receiver
come
they
on.
just drafted.
Oh, Burden.
Burden. There you go. Yeah. Wow. Brain fart there. I think there's a lot of talented guys on this team. I do think DJ Moore is the most talented of them, but the other issue I have is I don't think Caleb Williams is that good. I just the more I see of him, I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. He has some accuracy problems. Last year there was some excuses of him being a rookie and him being pressured, and even when he had time in the pocket, there was times where he just was not accurate at all. So I do have concerns with him being able to facilitate all these guys, and especially one of them to step head and shoulders above the rest. So that's just some of my concerns there. But if we move down to the next tier, this is basically here. I just have tons of guys because I think we're at the point now where you've basically solidified your wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, maybe you've even taken 3 of them at this point. And this is where maybe if you went running back early, you're using one of these guys as your wide receiver 2, but I think that they do have a lot of warts. They have a little bit of upside, but I don't think that they're cracking that wide receiver 1. 1 or 2 of them might. You brought up Ridley. I do think that he gets a solid target share. I don't think Ridley is that talented a receiver at this point in his career. We don't know what Cam Ward is going to be, and I don't know how great that offense is going to be. I agree with Wave, which is a scary thing to say, but I don't like Zay Flowers at all. I never really have. I think he's a talented receiver. I think he could be good on another team, but this is a team that's going to be run first. And Lamar threw 41 fucking touchdowns last year, and Zay Flowers had, 4 of them? I mean, is Lamar going to throw 40 touchdowns again? Possibly, but probably not. And if he just had a career year and Zay Flowers basically didn't come along with him, I want nothing to do with it. I think Jameson Williams is interesting, but very boom bust. Really, I would only do it if I had like Jamar Chase or one of the stud solid wide receiver ones, and I was taking him. I'd consider it. 1,000 yards last year, but only 58 receptions. It's concerning. Only 91 targets, so don't love that. I think Pickens has some upside. I think Dallas is going to have to throw quite a bit, so I do like him there. You have Xavier Worthy, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Olave, Travis Hunter, Jacoby Myers, Stephon Diggs. These are all guys that are going to have solid roles in their offense. But, I mean, at this point, what do you guys think of this tier? And at this point, you can basically talk about anybody further down the draft that you think is solid at this point. Dave, why don't you start it off?
With you with Pickens, I think Dallas's offense is going to have to throw a ton. He's going to even benefit from being alongside CeeDee Lamb too. He's going to get some softer coverage with a lot of attention brought there. I really like his upside for the year. With the change in offensive coordinator, Jameson Williams, it's now or never time, and he certainly has the talent. He was a first-round pick, or should have been, especially without the injury. Jalen Waddle, I always like. I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a lot of opportunity. I think the Chiefs' offense is going to be a lot better. You're missing Rashee Rice from this tier. I know there's still a lot of unknown.
No,
with,
intentionally left out.
I would put him here. I have no idea how many games he's going to play, especially with the news that came out today that he is not going to have a hearing until
so you would have
years
both.
Into.
So you would have both Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy in the same tier.
I would have them both on the list. I might even bump Worthy, Pickens, Williams are 3 of the names that I would have had in your above tier, especially with their upside. And I think Rashee Rice, when healthy and on the field, has plenty of upside to be in at least one of these top 6 tiers, if not a lot higher. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty with what his suspension is going to be. Say he doesn't get suspended until next year. He's tier 3? So I think he's worth a gamble down here. And, Travis Hunter, another just straight gamble. I don't know what we're going to get from him. But like I was saying before, you got a lot of names. You get to kind of pick your poison here. Go with upside and players you think can make that leap up.
Yeah, Travis Hunter is probably one of the hardest guys to rank this year, period. How much offense is he going to play? I mean, you have Cohen talking about 80% of the snaps. If that's the case, I think he could be fantasy viable. He is clearly very talented. It's a guy that when he is on the field, they're probably going to try and get the ball in his hands. But if he is playing defense, I mean, that's not great. It's taken away from what you want in fantasy football. So there's just a lot of unknown there, which is concerning there. But I get what you're saying with Rashi Rice and Worthy, but I think we could see it be someone different each week. And I think there could be a little bit of inconsistency with those guys. Now, obviously, Rashi Rice was the one last year, but Worthy was still a rookie. Kelsey was hurt. And it was really just a 3-game stretch before Rice went out. So we don't know how it's going to work out with all of them together, with Worthy in his second year and had a pretty strong role. If Brown is actually healthy and in there, it's a concern. And the other thing is Mahomes. I think Mahomes is going to take a step back in the right direction, but we can't bank on that. He's been a dink and dunk guy the past couple years. So, I mean, you can make a case with these wide receivers. They should open it up a little bit more, and especially with a lack of running back talent, but we got to see it. So I'm not willing to go too high with them yet. Fitz, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not gonna nitpick your guys here, but I do think there should be. I'll just name, maybe 3 or 4 guys that I think that you didn't mention that should be up here. One, Ricky Purcell. Taking a second-year jump. Debo's gone. Ayuk. Health-wise, so I like him. I like Debo, like I always do, but new scenery. McLaurin's been holding out. Got a quarterback there. Jaden Daniels, I like. And then who else? Oh, Michael Pittman. He's still. I know they're run first. I don't know who's starting there, Richardson or Danny Dimes or Danny Fumbles. They're both not very good. But Pittman's a guy that seems to produce no matter who's their quarterback. And then a rookie.
He's had one year where I think he was wide receiver 13. That was it.
Well, I mean, we're here in what, tier 6, tier 7. So I don't know. I would
be excited for Daniel Jones.
No, I'm not, and I'm not exactly excited for Pittman, but I'd probably draft him over some of these guys here. You mentioned Rashee Rice. I like him. If Bart's even with suspension, I'd take him up here, and then a couple rookies, Matthew Golden. You don't know who's going to be. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. Who's going to be the guy in Green Bay? But he's very talented. I think he'd be a good deep threat for Jordan Love. And then Emeka Egbuka. They just love that kid there. He's loved him coming out. So I think, with Godwin, even with Godwin there, I think he can carve out a lot of targets. So that's some guys I would throw in here.
Has Egbuka been the biggest hype train of all training camp?
Yeah,
probably. I mean, you got Bill, but he's probably up there.
I mean, Ibuka's actually going to start though.
1,000% Wave brings up Bill next week, right? 1,000%.
1,000%. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is going to be one of his running backs. Tootin will probably be another one. But no more spoilers. That'll definitely be one of Wade's picks.
Yeah, keep it as a teaser for next week.
No one will know if we just left it at Bill.
Mike, what do you think about this tier here?
It took much longer than it took on the quarterback and tight end show, but this is where we get mushy. It just feels super fucking mushy here. A lot of these guys blend together. A couple of names that stand out from your tier for me. Jacoby Myers, I don't know why we're downplaying Jacoby Myers as much as we are. We're going to sit here and say Thornton is going to fucking take targets away from Jacoby Myers. I just don't buy that. He's
No, I think
into-
Bowers is going to take targets away from Jacoby
Bowers is going to
Myers.
get his no matter what. But, like, he can't get every target. He's going to get a lot of them. But I just don't think he's going to get everything. Like, he had a very, very productive year last year. One of those just, solid veteran dudes who just show up. Like, I just don't think some, random big and fast rookie is taking that much away from him. Guys I would move down. Like, I've just never been a Judy guy. I've never been a big Olave guy. If we're going to start going all the way down the board, I kind of like the Pittman call. Again, I'm not spending a ton of capital on Pittman, but I think that's valid. I like the Golden call too. Damn, bitch, you stole a bunch of my dudes. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Green Bay, but none of them are all that good. Like, they're okay, but they're not like the best mouth. It's not like a mouth that I'm going out of my way to feed. I think Cooper Kupp with a change of scenery. I am a big Darnold guy.
They don't have the best mouths. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, we got mouth rankings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus.
I'm not going out of my way to feed those mouths. Pause. I don't even remember where I was. Debo? No, I wasn't talking about it. Kupp. I was talking about Kupp. I'm a Darnold guy. Darnold's going to ball out this year. So I think Njigma's primed.
No,
I think Kupp is primed. I think it's going to be Jefferson didn't slip much last year. Jefferson had a very productive year. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's
Addison
a totally
did too.
different. That's a different coach. That's a different offensive line. That's a totally different. I think Kubiak is a run first, throw the ball deep guy, and that offensive line is pathetic.
The Samchise is gonna, playoff bound. Seattle is playoff bound.
All right, we're off the rails here.
Darnold with no time. You've seen it firsthand. It's not good.
Nope.
And that's part of what concerns me with JSN. I honestly, Kupp could end up, if he is healthy and isn't totally washed, could end up being an okay pick where he is, because it could just end up being this offensive line is so bad that they have to get the ball out so quickly that Kupp just ends up getting uber targeted.
Is that why you're trying to trade me JSN in our Dynasty League?
No, I'm fine staying with JSN. It's just I do have a little bit of questions, and why not try and capitalize on a guy that clearly is talented.
Well, now you all know each other's strategy before we go draft with each other in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we really
good job, guys.
Trades on the fucking show here.
Might as well just let everyone know my max bid.
Yeah, have you guys wrapped up the Tootin deal yet? Can you throw any more picks at him?
Dude, I'm gonna get Derek. I don't know if you know, but I'm ever since that one preseason game, Abe's all in on Tootin, and he's been texting me like every day to give me all his picks.
Oh God,
I'm gonna have like his whole 2027 draft by the time it's over.
Fantastic. All right, well, I mean we've gone pretty deep here in the wide receivers. I do like Pearsall quite a bit. Obviously, everybody's hurt in San Francisco, so he could step up. It could be Jawan Jennings again potentially. So I think he's someone to look at late. Khalil Shakir was good last year. Maybe he's still a guy. I know he's banged up. Yeah, we're basically grasping at straws here. So I think that's good enough for now. I mean, obviously we're going to come back next week and we're going to break down the running backs, and that'll be our final fantasy football season preview. It's right around the corner. It's almost time. It's exciting. I intentionally haven't looked at week 1 DraftKings pricing yet because it's just too early and I don't want to get too excited. Probably do that after we record the show next week. So, Mike, any parting words?
No, this was fun. I think we did better this week than last week. Last week was definitely preseason.
Oh, definitely preseason. But we're moving along nicely. Fitz, what about you?
You did better this week because you had me here anchoring everything and holding it down. But that was good. I think we touched on a lot of the guys everyone's going to draft. So yeah, excited for a football season coming up, and I'll catch you on the running back show.
All right. And I cut him off. Dave, what about you?
Definitely better than last week. I think we're making progress week after week here. Next week should be even better. And, everyone's favorite subject, running back. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we always save the best for last. And I am glad that we are ending this because without air conditioning on in here, I am dying. So that's going to do it for this one. We went through the wide receivers. Go back, check out the quarterback and tight end tiers. As I said at the top, themadlabmma.com. You can get, I believe it's $20 off with code MAD. So check that out. You will get NFL free. So week 1, we will have everything covered there. Check it out. But that's going to do it for me. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
Just have fun out there.